Ronke, can you go ahead?
Okay. Thank you very much once again, Claire, for that one. I'm sure lots of us can definitely, there's so much to take home from that one as well. So, okay, if we don't have any more questions, can we go on to our third session? Our third session, we're going to be talking about sex. Yes, let's talk about it. I hope we're all comfortable with saying sex, especially when we have teenagers. You can't be one of those parents who's, who's shy about it, because these teenagers, these days, Lord, they will school you. So you better be comfortable talking about it. So I'm so excited that obviously that's part of what we're talking about today. And who better to talk about it than our convener today? And so glad to have her back. For those who are just joining us, she is such a fantastic lady, and she's a sought-after speaker. And she was a speaker at the 2019 valedictory service at the British International School, Lagos. And she hopes to see girls live consciously from within. She wants them to know there's enormous power within, and if they believe in themselves, commit to harnessing their uniqueness and potentials, they will become their best versions, living fulfilling lives. This is key to changing Africa. We see the work that she does with Brighter Girls Life Initiative. She doesn't just, she walks the walks, walks the walk, talks the talk, doesn't just talk the talk, but walks the walk as well. So welcome Fola once again, and she'll be taking our next session, which is titled, let's see, it is titled Technology, a Parent's Sex and Technology, a Parent's Guide. So welcome Fola Fadeyi.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone again. Thank you for staying through, and I hope you are having a great time. I'm learning. I mean, these sessions are just cutting me deep. They're making me ask myself questions about how I'm parenting. It's time to be awake, and it's time to parent awake, right? So thank you so much for the past speakers. It was such an amazing, insightful session. And it just makes me kind of proud of the work we do at Brighter Girls, that we are able to bring such speakers on board. Now I want to talk about sex education and technology, a parent's guide. And just like Ronke started, sex is a very not polarizing, it's a word that attracts, it gets attention, and honestly, sex and relationship are $1 billion industry. So every time you talk about sex, every time we talk about relationship, you have people that want to listen to you and even pay top dollar for whatever you are offering. And in the young people's space, sex is such an interesting, it's getting much more interesting. And so our perspective as parents needs to change. What I put there, I said once upon a time, there was a time that, our parents they never spoke about, never said the word sex. They never informed us, they never educated us. It was almost like a taboo talking about sex. There was a point in time where if you were going to see a naked person, you must have gone out of your way to go get a blue film. And there was a time, I think it's a CD, there's a particular CD that they used to sell in those years, because they call it blue film. I don't know if that's big right now. And there was a time that, whenever people dressed, people wanted to protect, their dignity and all of that. That was such a time. That was such a time. And all of a sudden, a lot of things are changing. Our children don't need to go look for sex content anymore. When you turn on your TV, there is a sex content there. When there is an advert on your TV, right, there is somebody is saying something about sex in it. There is a figure of a woman that is helping them sell the message. All of a sudden, the sex is selling at a ridiculous rate. Right. So these are the days we are in right now. Our children are not going that far to look for sex content. I was saying somewhere, I was speaking that there was a time, if I want to relax, I like watching competitions and I like watching food channels. And I'm watching food channel, and for me, food channel, I really like watching it because I also feel it's very, very safe. I feel it's very, very safe, and so I'm watching food channel. But in food channel now, maybe like Food Network channel, for instance, I watch a lot. when I have the time. You know, you're watching it and all of a sudden somebody is saying, a guy is saying that my husband, and you're like, you know, and sometimes you have children there. So sex, that's the sex conversation is not, you don't need to go look for it, it's coming to us. And that means that our position as parents really needs to change. And that is why this conversation is coming to fore. That's why this conversation is coming to fore. So what is our goal in this conversation? My goal with this conversation is to reiterate to parents the important role they serve as being the primary educators for their teens and their children. So it is your role to be the primary educator of sex. Sex education is your role as a parent. So I want to reiterate that. I also want to state clearly the impact and the role technology is playing in educating your children. Technology is playing a big role in educating our children today. I'll be talking about that. And I also want parents, I want to teach parents, I want to talk to parents how they can now be on the driver's seat. How can you be on the driver's seat in getting that information? So a lot of times parents don't have this conversation because they don't even know how to start. They don't know the what, the why, the when of sex education. So with this short time I have, I'll be able to share how you can get the driver's seat. And also, what should parents be saying to their kids about sex education? So by the end of this session, parents will understand the broad spectrum of sex education, how technology on the internet projects disparaging information and values on sex, and the roles of parents in defining the standard and the values. Now, one of the things when people hear sex, and when parents hear sex, parents think about intercourse, right? Parents think about intercourse. I remember that back in the days when we were growing up, when we hear sex, all of that, everything you heard about sex is virginity, right? Or you must not, are you sleeping with a man and all of that? And in recent times, we have also paid attention on body safety because of the high rate of rape cases that in the country right now or all over the world. A lot of sexual violations around the world. So a lot of parents are also focusing on your child's safety and intercourse and all of that. So by the end of this conversation, I would like parents to know that sex education is a very broad conversation, and each of these conversations or each of these aspects of sex education has a telling on your child. Now, why are we bringing technology into this conversation? Technology has quickly become the vehicle to which sex content is laundered or projected. So, gone are those days that your parent needed to have the conversation with you about sex and the content. But today, technology, the media, the gadgets in our hands has become the vehicle to which technology content is projected to our children. And that is why we can't shut the door to technology or the technology conversation anymore. It has even gone into an heightened rate right now. The role technology is playing in projecting sexual content. I want to accept that for young minds, I want you to know that sexual content is not just entertainment. Sex content is first education. When a child of 7 sees a girl dressed in a certain way, or sees pornography online, or sees anything that is sexual content, what it is doing to that child is that it is educating that child. Why? Because of the law of first contact. So for that child that is 7, that is 8, that is 9, that is even 12, the child doesn't know anything about it. So whoever is taking the first call of projecting what sex content is taking the role of a teacher and an education. And so we need to ask ourselves that who is teaching my child? So you can imagine if the first time a child is seeing maybe the actual act of pornography, pornography projects different messages to children. It projects men domination, it projects aggression, it projects different kinds of, styles and all of that. And that is what a child now feels that, oh, this is what sex is. This is how it should be. You must feel like this, you must do this and all of that. And that in itself is a lot of harm. And so I want you to always remember that for a young mind, the sexual content in whatever form is first of all education to them. So technology, like I said before, is a vehicle to which sexual content is portrayed. Now, so what is sex education? Sex education is the process of acquiring knowledge and skills and forming attitudes, beliefs, and values. So I want to break it down. Sex education is a process of acquiring knowledge, skills, you form attitude, beliefs, and values. So when a child is open, or maybe either through books, through the TV, or through maybe pornography or some of the other mediums I'll discuss, something is happening. They are building knowledge. That information, they are building information. They are getting information, which is knowledge. They are forming skills. So when a child is looking at something on the screen, or when a child is reading a sex content, the child is building skills already. The child is also forming attitudes. And that is why it's so important when we talk about age of consent, where we talk about, the big elephant in the room, pornography and all of that. Whatever the child sees, the child is gaining knowledge. The child is gaining knowledge. The child is forming attitudes, beliefs, and values. And with regards to what? With regards to human sexuality, which includes emotional relationships. Now, these are the broad spectrum of what sex education is. So sex education is not just body safety, it's not just intercourse, are you still a virgin, or all of that. This is what sex education is. Sex education deals with emotional relationships and responsibilities, human sexual anatomy, sexual activity, sexual reproduction, age of consent, reproductive health, reproductive rights, safe sex, birth control, sexual abstinence, and gender roles. Think about which of these aspects were you taught as a young person. So did your parents go into, did your parents teach you about your body? Did your parents teach you about your body? Did your parents teach you about how to take care of your body as a girl, as a woman? Who had the first conversation about ovulation with you? Claire said something about journaling your menstrual flow and all of that. Were those conversations that your parents had with you? For me, my parents didn't have those conversations with me. So there were a lot of things I didn't know. And honestly, those things caught up with me. I thought that being a good girl, you just didn't even need to care about your body, even hygiene, ovulation. Those were far things. Nobody had those conversations with me. But these conversations are telling, they are very telling on young people and even as adults. Have you met a girl that when she comes into the room, she has a body odor? She stinks? Oh, sorry for using that big word, but she has a body odor. Have you met people that when they talk and open their mouth, there's an odor that fills the room? Why? Because while they were growing, their parents didn't have the important, not just conversation, but didn't take them through how to take care of their body. So how a child, sometimes, you have your child that can have a bath at 6 years old, and you feel, oh, my child can take care of herself. She's 6 years old, she can have a bath. But you forget that as a child is growing and is reaching the adolescent age, the teenage years, and the hormones are working, certain things and changes are taking place in her body. So she's probably sweating more. She's now adding fleas. If you don't have these conversations with her, then she doesn't even know how to care for her body. She's living in a body, first of all, that she doesn't know. She's also living in a body that she doesn't care of. And you probably are happy that my child is 13 years old. I mean, come to think of it, how will you be teaching a 12-year-old child how to have a bath? A child that has been having a bath since when she was 6 or 7. So how many of us visit the drawing board again and say, you know what, let me teach you, or let me teach you how to have your bath, or ask those questions. How are you having your bath? All these are part of sexuality education, the human anatomy. And so these are conversations that we must be having. These are sex education or sex conversations that we must be having with our children. We need to always revisit that conversation again. So I'm going to be breaking down different areas of sex education that you should be having with your child, what technology or the media is saying to them, and how they are saying it, and what is the ideal messaging that you should be having. The first one I have here is body image. I need to admit someone. Body image. Body image is how you feel about yourself. It's so interesting. I had my cousins or my sister's children come to me and to my house some days ago, and I saw an 11-year-old girl. She was just, let me say that word, she was straight. She's already growing some breasts, some boobs, but she's still straight. She doesn't really care about what she looks at that time, at that age. But the truth is that as children begin to grow, they begin to think about how they look. In fact, research shows that by the age of 9, girls are getting conscious. And so sometimes you are just looking at that your baby that was 6 and that is now 11. But you don't know that in her mind, she's thinking about how come Esther is in class, Esther is using bra, and I'm not. How come I am so busty and other people are not? How come I'm fatter than everybody in my class? Your role as a parent is for you to not only to be proactive, but to see ahead the struggles that your teenager can have. And that is why conversations are very important. Sex conversation is not a one-time conversation. It's a conversation you have over and over again. And so you need to think, first of all, think about your own journey. When you were 13 years old, what body issues did you have? I remember growing up, I have always been on diet. Like, from the time I think I was in secondary school or university, I was on one fat diet because I wasn't really comfortable in my skin. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. And so imagine that your child right now, maybe you don't even know, is putting some food in a bra because she wants to look some certain way. Are we having those conversations? Are we thinking about that? I remember there was a girl that came to one of our workshops. She's quite busty. So one of the conversations we had with them, when apart from self-awareness, knowing yourself, we talk about it, we do this body talk a lot. One of those conversations, one of those things I was talking to her, she's quite busty. So one of those conversations we have with them is actually how to use the right bra size for a girl. I also come to the boys' conversation. How to use the right bra size, and she is so busty and she's very, very unconscious of herself. And not only conscious, she doesn't also like how she looks. And I remember her telling me one day when I saw her, she said that, oh my God, that is this boy in my class that likes me and told me that he likes the size of my boobs. She's I think she's in year 10. So she must be about 13 years old. Immediately she heard that somebody was, admiring what she doesn't like about herself. For her, that was validation. So as parents, you really need to foresee what your child may be going through. So don't just shout on that child and say, oh, sit well, or where they, no, we need to have conversations. You need to ask them, how do you feel about yourself? You need to be vulnerable. Use your journey and your story, share it with your child, because these are things that are really, really defining. And for your information, it's not only the peers that are talking. The media now has a voice. There's something I call it, I say Miss Internet she's We now have a guest teacher in our homes. Her name is Miss Internet. And you know what? The children love her because any question they ask her, she knows and she doesn't judge them. The social media now has a voice. Children are now thinking how they look. Your child posts a picture online, there are no likes, and she begins to feel that nobody likes her. So these are big conversations that we should be having, and technology is changing the conversation. Social media is changing the conversation. All of a sudden, there is a lot of projection about body reconstruction. And so you have girls in 13, 14 that are still growing, they're already thinking of changing their bodies. Now you may think that this is a cheap conversation, but this can be a reason why your child is depressed, is not doing well in class, and is just not comfortable with themselves. So these are the conversations we should have. So how is technology projecting this message? TV shows like BB Naija, Big Brother Naija, sometimes we find it entertaining. And there is a whole lot that is going on there. I don't want you to ever forget that while you find it entertaining, is education for your child. Remember, sex education is a process of acquiring knowledge, of forming attitudes, of forming beliefs. Technology is already shaping the values of the next generation, talking about sex. If you as a parent are standing on the sideline and not having that conversation, we are going to wake up to a generation that all the values we were raised with are gone. You are the only person that can raise the standard of what is right and what is wrong. And I know that on this call, we may have different values. Our values as well might have changed over time. We might have become permissive of some things. Why? Because the time has changed. But what I'm saying is this: are you having conversations? Are you having those conversations with your child? So what are the ideal or right messages you should be having? You want to tell your child that there are different body shapes and each is great. That's the truth. It doesn't matter how good you feel about your body. Our bodies are different. A woman's body does much more than it looks. These are the conversations you want to have with your child. So while your child can be so focused on how I look, you can take a cue. How does your child dress? How many minutes does she stay or does it stay in front of the mirror? Where does your child take cue of how they dress? When they're buying their clothing, who do they want to be like? When they're dressing up as boys, are they standing up asking questions? You'll find out that their role models are already on social media. That is the role technology is playing. And these are the conversations we must sit down, we must have. So you must help your child, either a boy or guy or girl, to know that your body does much more than it looks. I'm talking about body image now. You need to help your child to focus on what their bodies can do much more than what it looks. And we are different on this call. We're so different. So you use your journey as an example. Then you also want to focus on healthy living and diet and exercise. So if your child is struggling, if you already know, so for instance, I have a child that looks a certain way. There are things that I'm already doing because I know that if a child takes after me or takes after the dad, there are things that we can do. So simple things like exercising, healthy diet, healthy habits, those are things that we can introduce to our children now. You also want to tell your teenager, for instance, that teenagers bloom at different times. And honestly, this part of the bigger, the better that the social media is projecting is something that we must nip at the bud now. So another thing that we also have to project is appropriate dressing. So you realize that if no matter what shape you have, once you wear the right clothing, it just helps a lot. So this is the time, if you have a teenager at home, this is the time that you want to start that conversation. Let her know about body shapes. Take her through the different body shapes and how our dressing can help project our body image or our self-esteem. These are big conversations in the room that we need to have with our children. So I'll quickly run through some of the areas of sexual education, body anatomy. I already talked about that. her body anatomy. Let your child know about her reproductive health. If you are a boy or if as a boy or a girl, don't let your child live in a body that they don't know. Please, it's so important. And there's something about sex education. Sex education has to be staggered. The truth is that technology has thrown it all open, right? Right now, there are some big conversations you probably want to have later that has to move backward. But sex conversation is an ongoing conversation and it needs to be staggered, right? So you want things like ovulation, you must be that parent that is able to maximize teachable moments. So for instance, if your child has a first show, that's the time to have big conversation. My mother had a celebration for me, killed a chicken for me when I had my first show. You can do something close to that, but use it as an opportunity to start having big conversations with your child. The values, you must be the person, you must be on the driver's seat, entrenching the right values on your child, and the time to start is now. So for instance, if you see a movie scene if you're watching a movie show, a movie with your child and you see a scene, you can talk about dressing, you can talk about age of consent, you can talk about the rights your child has. These are big times that you need to throw in the big conversation. You need to be the primary influence that your child has on sex education. Yeah, body anatomy, you need to talk to your children about their body anatomy, their reproductive health, especially as they are growing up. Then let's see. Then we have age of consent. We have age of consent, we have intercourse, we have age of consent. Pornography portrays aggression and female domination in pictures of things. Pornography also says a lot about gender roles in culture and also propagates this. So these are some of the messaging that technology is pushing out there. Now, a lot of young people, I'm sure you've heard about child trafficking, and a lot of young children are glued on pornography, and I'm not raising an alarm. I'm telling you that it's almost a pandemic. Why? Because a lot of porn sites are targeting ads towards young people. And sometimes it's not just about young people, it's a marketing gimmick. So for instance, statistics show that 80% of kids have seen pornography and they stumbled on it when they were doing their assignment. So your child is online, and a lot of children are online learning now. But while they are learning online and doing assignments, they are pop-ups. These are tech conversations that we need to have with our children. Does your child know what to do when they see a pop-up, either a gambling site, a site that says that if you click on this thing, you're going to get $1,000? Are those conversations you've had with your children already? When your child sees something like, these are all things you can't resist. See, it happened to me. It happened to close people that I know. There was a parent that called me about a month ago, and she was like, I put up all the checks, all the security apps I put on the phone when my children needed to do online schooling. And she said one day my child came to me and she was wailing. And I was asking her, what happened? And she was like, she just came to me and said she's been on pornography for weeks and it's now affecting her mind. I have things I'm working with that honestly pornography switches their mind, because there is something we call internet addiction. Internet addiction and pornography addiction has almost the same influence that alcohol has on the mind. And these are big conversations. So your child is online, and sometimes I just think, and I'm like, God, when we get back to school, and when the school resumes, you don't know who that child sitting next to your child and what they have been doing during the holidays. So are we going to have teenage boys who are looking for outlets to express or to explore the things they've seen? Are we going to have boys that are going to start using the language they've seen online or the behaviors they've seen online on girls in school? Is our school system even ready for this? So while those are far cry, we as a parent, we can come in to begin to set boundaries. And the biggest boundary to set right now is not only to put a security app on your phone or on the gadget, is to have a text conversation where you can draw the lines and the boundaries with your child. I met somebody last week, and the person said, oh, my son is very inquisitive. He's very inquisitive, curious. He was the most, all this cultural day they do in school. So he was the most handsome boy in Brazil. That was what he did in school. And she wanted to know who is the most beautiful. He wanted to know who is the most beautiful girl in Brazil. Very innocent. So he goes online, and guess what? Our children are no more asking us questions. Have you noticed? When Uncle Google is there, what do you know that Google doesn't know better? So when you put your child, you give your child the gadgets, and your child is searching, what are they searching? So this child goes online and just Googles the most beautiful girl in Brazil. Guess what? The most beautiful girl in Brazil is a porn star. So as soon as he clicks, and you know what, these boys go on image, all of a sudden the boy the parent or the boy was fortunate in that it was loading. While he was loading, he went away. But the older brother now came to the scene, and all of a sudden they had a screen full of explicit body image of women. And the boy started shaking all of a sudden. And the mother saw how he was shaking. What's that? And all of a sudden, she came in, and immediately she saw it, she just lost it. When the husband saw what they saw, the man lost it. It was too graphic. It was too graphic. What was the boy trying to do? The boy just wanted to know the most beautiful girl in Brazil. And all of a sudden, the child now has a image, hopefully doesn't speak to their mind. And from there, they had to have a sex conversation immediately. So you see that technology is really coming to play, and we can't shy away from the conversation anymore. So you want to ask yourself, what is your child watching? What are your children, what are they even seeing on the screen? What are the things we are permissive of? Now, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you what they watch or what you not. But I'm saying that what you permit is a way of saying, is what you allow. See, pornography, boys and girls are glued on pornography. The statistics is clear. They are either abusers or they abuse other people. So we need to jump in on this conversation now. Then we talk about the age of consent. That's very important. You need to start telling your child, your child, either a boy or a girl, that when I say no, no is no. And we can practice that in every area of life. We need to start explaining that no is no, and no boy should say that, oh, she's saying no, but the body language is saying yes. As a matter of fact, we should teach our boys that even if somebody is saying no, the body language is saying no, it is a no. When the body language is enough to say it. If I'm saying no in my attitude, in my eyes, no is no. You don't need to explain my no for me. No is no. These are each conversations we need to start having with our children. And we also need to let them know that alcohol impairs good judgment. So when our children go maybe to parties or they are going to their friends, they let them know that alcohol impairs the judgment. These are big conversations we should be having with our girls and boys. Show them stories of other people online. Share your own stories with them. Help them to, in a way that is not judging, help them to make sound judgment through their behaviors and attitudes. So I'll quickly, please, can I have my time on the chat room? How much time do I have? So I've spoken about reproductive health. I'm going to just say something here. I remember a workshop we had, and it was a workshop for teenagers. And honestly, that particular workshop, I didn't even talk about sex education. I don't know why. And I remember that the girls were having a game, and while they were having a game, they were announced it was the truth or dare, something like that. I didn't ever. And they were saying all sorts of things. They were saying all sorts of things that have you ever been fingered in the cinema? See, when they go to that cinema and everything is dark, a lot of things happen. You know, so they were saying all of that. And I just came into the room and I was talking about sexuality education, and I was talking about STI, sexually transmitted infections. And I remember telling them that there are certain infections that are caused by kissing. All of the girls just went, hey, because they didn't know. Because why? What parents always ask them is that, have you slept with any man? And parents don't realize that sex definition is so explicit and is so concentrated now. You know what I'm talking about. So the girls are doing so much, the boys are doing so much, and we are sticking to that naive or archaic mindset of okay, let me just check my time so that I can. Okay, so my time is fast, it's going. So I'm just going to run through this. So these are some of the conversations we need to have, safe sex and all of that. So how can you, as a parent, what can you do? What you can do is, one, you must add the tech conversation. We wrote a guide called the Tech Conversation Guide. And in that guide, I spoke about why you need to have the tech conversation, the 13 ways you can protect your child online. When you give your child a gadget, you must first of all be clear on why you are giving that child a gadget. How curious is your child? If your child is 9 years old, you give the child a smartphone, he's going to do smart things on the phone. Things like using a desktop instead of a laptop. Does your child use their laptop or what have you in their rooms? Those are questions we need to have. Does your child have a TV in the room? Does your child have unhindered access to internet? Do you have apps on your phone, on your gadget that monitors the sites your children are going to? Those are some of the things we put in that tech guide. We also wrote there, if your child has been on porn sites, 7 things you can do now to stop your child. Then I must get into, for the girls, we need to have specific sex conversation with girls and with boys, because sex comes with gender roles that the culture or the society has embedded in our minds. So we need to have big conversation with our boys, and we need to have big conversation with our girls. The huge thing about sexting, sending news to boyfriends or your friends, is a big job we need to start have. You need to teach your child the language a boy uses at you. See, those languages not because he loves you, it's because he saw them online. When the child is saying that I want you, what are you wearing? Are you wearing this? Those are sexting languages that we can actually Google and actually be the teacher. You teach your child that, you see, when a boy starts using this language at you, the child is putting in on the parent. Those are the conversations we can start having with our girls right now. And we put all of that in the tech conversation, right? So children, then the role of social media, we can talk about that, how to stay grounded in a world that our children are online already. Right, so those are some of the things, those are some of the conversations we should have. Engage and put necessary guidelines in check in place. There are lots of apps you can put on your phone, on the computers that will safeguard your child. But I always see the first thing is the sex conversation. You need to have the sex conversation. Stagger the sex conversation, and sex conversation also has a lot to do with friendship, healthy boundaries. What are the 7 value, the 7 pillars of healthy friendship? These are all things that we teach children in our workshop. So we need to also model what you want your child to be. As your child is turning into the teenage years, there are so many, you can't tell a child what you're not. So we need to start modeling the right values to our children, and we need to reiterate those values to our children. Lastly, I'm 5 minutes out of my time. I want you to get the tech conversation guide. And I want you to implement. I know I have people on this call who have bought that guide. I beg you in the name of God, let it be a manual that you use. You may not know how powerful those simple lines are. When you implement the safety, you see, when you have conversation with your girl, for instance, about falling in love online, she's 13 years old and somebody is telling her that I love you online. These are conversations you should have. Specific conversations you must have with your daughter. Technology is changing the face of this conversation. We can't wait anymore. It's time for us to do an audit. Do an audit. How safe is your home? Who are the people that are living with you? Do they watch pornography sites? Is your home tech abuse proof? These are things that we need to have. And I hope that the ongoing conversations will help us further. A lot of us will get on it. It's not to raise an alarm. Honestly, it's just for us to leave the door open. First of all, that we are the first people that introduce that conversation to our children, right? Oh, I wish I could tell you how to introduce it, but I think you'll be able to get some of those on the guide. And we'll probably be able to create more materials on how you can just start the conversation. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Thank you. We can't hear you. You are muted.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you very much, Fola, for that one. I was saying how the sex conversation is something we cannot tiptoe our way around. We've got to have that conversation. I know it's awkward for a lot of people because we grew up in a home where our parents were not really free about talking to us about sex. But like I said, we cannot parent our children the way that, you know, our parents did us. So we must confront these things head on. And so for those who may have questions, you can type in your questions. I think we'll take our next session and then take a break again with questions and answers. But in the meantime, type your questions in the comment section, and then we'll take those questions